Welcome to Apprentice Help. My name is Matt, and today we're going to be going over a pretty brief introduction into looking at construction drawings and blueprints. So there's so much to know and so much to learn through experience about what kind of goes on with some of these construction blueprints. So I'm going to go over some things that I find to be relevant and hopefully informative to you. And as you go on through your career, I'm sure you're going to learn many, many more things. So take this kind of as an informational guide. So to start, let's take a look at what we're looking at here. So down in the bottom right corner, this tells us that this is our A01. So it's the first page of the architectural drawings. This is the site plan, the impermeable area, and the site coverage. So the plan of where the building is going to go. For the step code in BC, we're going to talk about the building envelope and how much of it is going to be air impermeable, and then the amount of coverage on the site, which is more of a bylaw thing. There's a lot of information to be learned if you look around, not just at the pictures, a lot of important information. So it's worth taking your time to really go over the notes. We'll zoom in a little bit more here. So there's a lot of energy requirement notes here that will come into effect a little bit later on, especially if you're not just forming or framing the house. If you're getting into some more of the finishing phases, you're going to notice that there's going to be windows and things like that that are a little bit different than what you're used to perhaps. So there's specifications for the windows, the skylights, the insulation, and the air barrier for all the different assemblies, and go into those later. Specifications for the mechanical, the electrical. They're going to have some solar ready piping, and that's going to go up into the attic for future solar stuff. So it might not actually be hooked up, but there will be rough outs that have to get done. Here's our legend. So these are some symbols that you're going to see on the drawings. There's a floor drain, safety glass, smoke alarm, concrete and wood frame wall. These actually look like they're backwards. I think that this is actually concrete and this is wood framed wall, so be careful with that. And that might become immediately apparent as soon as we take a look. There's going to be an energy display somewhere in the house, and this dotted line, it's a long dash, a small dot, and a long dash. That's the property line. It's important. There's a lot of dots and dashes that you'll come across. Some of them are beams, some of them are load-bearing areas, and this one is a property line. So it's important to pay attention to what the exact dot and dash sequence is. And TOC, top of concrete. Over here, this has more to do with the site coverage of the building, so it's all the square footage, which is a useful guide to go back for later on it saves you some time doing some calculations. Okay, so this is basically the whole front page. Let's dive into the left side here, the very first drawing on the left. So its title is impermeable area. It gives you the square footage of the site, the house, the path. There's going to be stepping stones. There's a total impenetrable area or impermeable area, which is 43%, and you're allowed to be 60% on the site. So taking a look here, we can see this is our property line that runs around the outside. We're actually getting quite close to it, maxing it out. There's some steps coming up the front of the house. There's some doors on the back. I'm guessing this is some sort of deck perhaps. A couple sets of stairs and pavers out the back. And then, there's a whole separate house going in the back of this, which is going to be on separate drawings. So that's good to know. You don't really need to concern yourself too much with this stuff just yet. This is more from the general builders or the project manager's point of view. Jump over to the second picture, site coverage. There's another consideration here too with the limiting distance to the property line and to adjacent buildings, and that when you are looking at how many windows you're installing on the sides of your building, it's actually going to affect how close you get to buildings beside you due to fire separations of buildings. Okay, so on the site plan here on the third, this gives us a lot more information about the nitty-gritty and what we're getting into in terms of construction. So it gives us our first really good look at the building. So we'll start, the street is up here, and we'll zoom in a little bit. So we see there's going to be a tree here. They want temporary fencing, which is always good to know. There's going to be 2 sumps buried in the front yard, which to me indicates that there's going to be a lot of water on this site. And actually, I think that there was actually a river running through, or a stream running through the site when we were there. Firefighter access, concrete path. So there's going to be some concrete work done on the front yard going through the back. And that's going to go up to a set of stairs, which is good to know. So you know that there's going to be quite a lot of concrete forming in the front of the house. Here we have, it's up on the legend, PG is the proposed grade and the existing grade, and these are all elevations. So you're going to have a benchmark that's shot somewhere on the site by a surveyor, and then you're going to base all of your elevations off of that. You have all of the heights of your floors. So your lower floor, 213.91 feet, and then your main floor is 9 feet above that, and then you're going to be another 10 feet above that. So it's good to make sure that your elevations are going to reflect what your floors are actually doing. You have a bunch of measurements here from the face of the concrete to the outside of the wall, and then you can see at the back of the building that there is going to be a patio and a landing. Now there's a few set of stairs coming out of the back of the building, and so that indicates to me that there might be a secondary suite. So we'll take a look at that. And go to the back of the lot, and there is a laneway house, which is going to be a whole separate thing, a whole separate permit, different construction. So that kind of walks us through our first really good view of the first page. Kind of gives us a better idea of what's going on the site. Let's go down to the second page now. Second page of the architectural. And, oops. Let's zoom up here. So this is going to be broken up by basement floor, main floor, and upper floor. And we'll start around the periphery again to see what's going on here. So we have floor drain, top of concrete, smoke alarm, energy monitor, interpolated grade, the bottom of wall, existing elevation, which is existing grade, proposed grade, and top of wall. So let's start in the basement. So here we have, so the legend was a little bit backwards. Here we have our concrete walls. You can see it has the aggregate in it. This is the same orientation as the previous one. So there's 2 exits at the back of the building, and that's basically the entrance. So I'm thinking that there's going to be a separate suite in here, and P1 indicates that it's a partition wall, and it actually looks like there's no access between these two, so that to me says that there's going to be a separate suite, and separate suites need fire separations, so this is going to have to be a fire rated separation wall, which is really important to remember because it's going to have a special wall assembly and drywall, so keep that in the back of your mind. So that means that this is going to be like a rental suite. If you look in here, we have our kitchen, washer and dryer. There's going to be a window here, a 4'6" by 2 foot window. So that's the width and the height. This is going to be 5 foot wide by 2 feet. And because here you can see that these are concrete, these are actually going to be blockouts for the formwork. So you know that when you're going to be forming up this basement, you're going to have a whole bunch of window blockouts to do in your forming. So it's really good to get that in your head ahead of time, that you do, that you're going to be able to locate and do your rough openings for your windows in the actual concrete. So you have to lock that away. That also means that you're going to need to put in headers afterwards to support the floor joist for the next level, or the floor system that goes across those gaps. So there's going to be a staircase down there, which is good. Most of these, there's going to be the joists are going to be running this way, so there's going to be probably some more footings going in here to support these walls down here, because they're not just going to sit on the slab. It's also important to think about, your load path in the structural. It's going to tell you what your bearing walls are, but especially around a staircase, you're probably going to see some bearing walls and some more strip footings going in. That's good for the basement. And here also, yeah, it's going to give you your elevation. So when you're working on your excavation and things like that, you're going to be able to check and just make sure you are in the ballpark of where you want to be. Okay, let's move over to the main floor now. So this looks like the entrance to the building here at the front. So we're going to have, it gives you your dimensions here for the stairs, 6 risers at 6.8 inches each, 12-inch treads. Okay, so looking at the front of this building, we can see we have 2 really big windows in the front wall. There's actually almost no wall there at all. So this W2 that's here, I'm assuming that that's going to specify for some sort of structural component that's going to be specialized, because especially in Vancouver, we have to do a seismic component to all of our building. So this is really worth paying attention to here if you have really, really big openings in your walls. There's going to be a seismic component that has to be part of it. Once again, you have your elevations of the floors. In the powder room here, there's window dimensions all around here. So it looks like for the most part, there's almost no windows on the sides of the building. It's going to be quite close to the property line on the other buildings, so that makes sense. And they're saving all of their openings for the ends. Once again, tons of openings at the back of the building, and there's another W2. There's a stoop out back, and there's a big set of stairs going down, and those are going to be, you can kind of look here. So there's a cross section from the main level, and the stairs are going to be here on the right, and they're looking like they're going to be basically directly over top of these stairs here. So that's worthwhile paying attention to, just so that there's no problems later on. So really get a good idea of how these 2 sets of stairs are going to line up on top of each other. So there's nothing too crazy about the main level. I wonder what this EM is. Let's go up here and look. Energy monitor. Okay, so that's kind of a new thing. So that's going to be right in the main kitchen. So we have our staircase here. Okay, so that pretty much takes care of the main floor. Nothing really special, just mostly open. So we'll move up to the upper floor. So these stairs are still on the main level here. So that's not actually part of this. It's just showing that they still exist. So it looks like here, on this side over here, that's a straight shot on the wall up down below, but up top it actually scooches in a little bit. My guess is that the square footage requirement was exceeded if they had a straight run, so we actually have to jog back and reduce some of this square footage so they can maintain code compliance. So up top, you come up the stairs. It says that there's a skylight above, so we'll probably see that on the roof plan. Washer dryer up top, which is probably very handy for them. One thing here you also want to kind of pay attention to is washer dryer upstairs. Is there going to be drainage? Is there going to be curb walls in case it floods? What's going to happen with those things? Ensuite bathroom. This is the master here, and the master has a door that goes out to a deck. Okay, so there's going to be a deck out front. Is it going to be a cantilever deck with the joists, or are you going to be having columns going all the way down to the ground? So 5'11.25". That seems like a pretty far cantilever, but depending on the joists that you have, that might be doable. I'm not sure. We'll have to see on the structural. Once again, more solar piping all the way from the top. There's another 210/6/8 door, 210/6/8. So it looks like all the doors for this place are going to be pretty much the same. So you can, once you get, maybe you get one of your guys doing doors, all the rough openings, and they can just go around and just bang them all out and be super consistent. That's good to know too. Anything else? Okay, so here, this looks like, oh no, that's normal. Got some bypass sliding doors, just some regular windows. There's a flex space here, just kind of an open space probably. And nothing too crazy on the upper floor to look at. There's going to be a glass guardrail around the deck, so that's good to know. Let's zoom out and see if we missed anything from the house plans. I think we got everything. Let's move to the next sheet. So on A3, we have the roof plans and some of the section drawings. So let's take a look at the roof. And there we have up top, so there's our staircase on the first level. We come up, we have our interior staircase with the skylight that we saw above it and the jog for the square footage purposes probably. And then here on the roof, this is a scupper. So this is going to be, the section where my cursor is right now is going to be lower than the actual roof, and it's probably going to be sloped down towards the circle, which is the drain. And there's the deck below. So they're going to have a slope package, which you see here, 0.75 to 1 is the ratio, and it's going to be sloping this way towards the scupper, and the scupper is going to slope this way for the rainwater. So let's move around and see what else we have here. So here's one of the cross section AA, which you can see on one of the previous plans. They give you a nice dotted line for the maximum building envelope. That's just a bylaw thing. You can't build like a 50-story building. They give you specifications. This is an R1. So I'm guessing it's a detail for the roof assembly. You have all of your doors in here. The doors, the hinge side is where the arrows meet. So these are going to be center opening doors. There's an exploded view of the staircase detail. So they're going to give you the tread needs to be 10.5 inches across or in depth with the nosing that's going to be 1 inch. You can see that here. And the rise wants to be 7.5. Longitudinal section BB. You can see this is the slope for the roof, 0.75, 12. So it's almost a very, very flat roof. Here's a view of that back deck. Oh, and there's another deck. So that back deck is actually framed right into the building, which is good to know. And then the deck off the back of the kitchen is going to be cantilevered. And then you can see the stairs coming up out of the basement. C1 is for the ceiling detail, F1 floor detail, W2 the wall detail. Sometimes they do them for windows too, but they look a little bit different. W1, okay, so the wall here is a little bit different. I'm assuming that that's just going to be concrete because it's foundation. And you can see you have your little foundation, your footings. Here you're going to have an exploded view, which will go into, right, so I'll do kind of a screen here so you can see that you have your conditioned space in here, and out here you're going from a conditioned to an unconditioned space. So they need to make sure that the insulation remains despite the fact that you're doing a concrete wall with your rigid insulation and then your bat, that's for the basement down here. And then on top you're doing a framed soffit, almost like a roof, but then you're going to pack it full of insulation. And then you're doing a layer of plywood, a layer of torchon, and then lightweight concrete. So you're not going to allow any heat loss. You're going to allow less heat loss coming through there. And they give you all the specifications for the type of foam that you're using. Bat insulation normally looks like this, and then your rigid foam looks like this. It's just a kind of standard thing. Let's go on to the next one. So this is some more details here. We'll start with the elevations page. So elevations are great because they give you an idea of what the building is going to look like. So this is the elevation looking off the street. So we're looking north. You can see the kind of siding that they chose and the stairs going up to the landing. There's a couple of windows. These will have to be, because they're above grade windows for the, or they're just their windows for the suite below, they'll have to probably be egress windows for fire and emergency. So you have to pay attention to that to make sure that the sizes match. That's, as a carpenter, that's not really your job, but it's good to get to know some of these details so that you're like, hey, this window seems too small if it's just a tiny little window, and then you can bring it up. So lots of windows in this place. They have a finish schedule in here, which is nice, so you can see. So number 1, triple glazed vinyl windows, wood entry door. There's number 2 over there. Number 2, which is in the middle of nowhere. I'm not sure what that's all about. Number 3, rock dash stucco. That's probably supposed to be number 3 because that's part of the wall. 4, horizontal cedar siding. So I don't see number 4 in here anywhere. Aha, horizontal cedar siding. That looks like vertical to me. So that's worth double checking whether they want horizontal or vertical. 42-inch glass guard, that's number 5. I think that's for the back deck. And then concrete steps, number 6. So yeah, just going through, checking out all the different windows. You just see they give you some details. These are all the same, which is good to know. And here they have some building dimensions. This is mostly for code compliance and local council requirements. Now we're looking at A05. Okay, so we'll start here in the corner. So all the different assemblies that we saw, the R1, P1, W1, W2. W2 is an exterior wall, so it goes from the outside basically in. So on the very far outside we have wood stucco, then we have Roxol, which is outsolation, which is cool. That's gonna be rigid outsolation. 2 layers of building paper, 1/2-inch plywood sheathing, 2x6 studs at 16. Then inside of those they have R22 bat insulation, a vapor barrier, and then drywall. And then they give you an estimated R value, which is great. Then they add them all up and they figure out what the total R value of the assemblies are. Yeah, W1 was the concrete. That's good to know. So here for our W2 wall, you can kind of get a better idea now. So we have our cladding, and then we have our rain screening, the gap in between, which they didn't mention because that was more of an assembly for the R value. Then we have our exterior Roxol, and then we're going to have our building paper, and then plywood, and then our bat insulation, and then our poly, and then our drywall. And so you know as you kind of like build outwards from that. And they just give a typical corner. This is a really standard corner that you see in framing so that you can maintain insulation all the way through the corner, which is great. If you do it in different ways, you can actually trap it so that you make a space in the corner where there's no insulation. That's going to be a cold spot, which is no good. Typical window jamb. Let's take a look here. So this is top-down view. So you have your window, which is here, and the window flange that you nail into the framing is down here. This is a little bit different than traditional building because of outsolation. So your window flange is actually not going to nail to the plywood. It's going to nail to a block that's on the plywood, which is like, okay, we just figured something out, something critical out here. This is going to be different than normal building because of this detail. So whenever you have a window, you're going to have to get all of your building paper and stuff behind it and then nail that on. And then all of your waterproofing and stuff is going to have to go around that. So good little discovery. This is the deck over living space, the vented parapet wall. So that's kind of cool. I haven't really seen a detail where we do vented parapet walls before. So this is like a little mini wall on the side of the building for the deck. You can see they have flashing on top and all the framing, and then they have little vents in here to allow the air to get inside and dry wood off if the water gets inside. Okay, so there's gonna be a wood deck on sleepers, and then there's gonna be 2 plies of torch on underneath that, and then spray foam insulation. Okay, it's good to see. So you're gonna do spray foam in the joist space underneath. Here's another elevation view of a window assembly. So same thing. They're doing the framed opening with the block on the outside and the flange, and then you have your tongue and groove siding on the outside. Piece of flashing comes in over top and underneath, which is good to know. And this is a window head and sill specifically for W2s. So this will be different for the W1 because W1's a concrete wall, so you'll have to see something different there. This is a typical wall section all the way from the bottom. So you have our concrete footing with a drain tile and your fill. You have your R12 rigid insulation underneath the slab, plus the concrete on top. This dotted line is going to be our poly line for our impermeable air membrane, and that's actually going to go underneath the sole plate, up the wall a little bit, but underneath the sole plate, so that we can essentially draw our impenetrable air barrier line all the way around this building in here. So pay attention when you're putting your plates down that you make sure you have your poly that wraps underneath, as well as your sill gasket. This is kind of a new thing for building science. When you're working with the step code, is that you have to start planning for all of these assemblies. Instead of just putting down the regular sill gasket like you would, you're actually going to do poly here. But that's something you'll go over with your energy consultant if you're working on a more passive house. And you can see that poly goes up and connects through the next stage of the building. Up here, okay, so they're doing spray foam insulation in the joists, which is great. That also acts as a vapor barrier, so they're kind of doubling up here. And then they're just kind of going over. They want to do bug screen. So that is a comprehensive ish run through of these set of plans. Let's try that again. So that is an initial walkthrough of this set of plans for this new build in Vancouver. Keep in mind this was just the architectural version of the plans, so you do a similar walkthrough with your structural plans, preferably kind of back to back, because you'll look at some of the things, or in tandem even, you'll look at some of the details and you'll start comparing, okay, this is here, and the for the architectural, and does the structural match? Or like, oh wow, that's a really big beam we're putting in there. That's not going to give us nine feet of headroom. So there's going to be stuff like that that doesn't jive, and the sooner that you can pick those things up, the more efficiently you can have the project go, because you'll actually start ordering different material as the things change well in advance of, say, a beam showing up that's too deep for your architectural purposes, but it's what the structural calls for. And if you had have known ahead of time, you could have reworked the design, ordered a steel beam instead, and then move forward. So working through those kind of things is really important, but also as an apprentice, you're looking at these plans and you're starting to get an idea of what's happening with this project. I just got a huge lumber delivery, and I'm going to stack everything down here. But if you're still in the forming phase, you're going to need to form this concrete walkway at some point. So maybe that's not the best place to be stacking all of your wood. Maybe you should stack it back here at the back of the house, just so it's out of the way, so you don't have to move it twice. Those sort of things, thinking ahead, keeping the project rolling, is going to be really important, especially if you can get a set of the plans from the builder or your boss and really look through those things and start to get a better picture of what you're dealing with. So I really hope that you enjoyed and you took some information away from this video. As I said before, I made this video as a request by an apprentice that I worked with recently, because he mentioned that there wasn't any sort of resource that he was able to find going through plans. The stuff that has been taught to me that I'm able to pass on, if I can help at all, I'm really glad if you get something from it. And if you have anything that you'd like to see or any questions that you have, please send me an email, and I'm sure we can work through it together and help to find you the answers that you need, because after all, it's a team effort to get this stuff figured out. My name is Matt with Apprentice Help, and thanks very much for checking out this video. If you like what you see, please make sure to subscribe, and you can stay up to date with all the latest stuff that's coming out from me. Take care for now.